What's up, my home studio engineers? Thank you so much for checking out the Home Recording Network. And if you have been following along, welcome back for day 27 of this 30-day journey to better home studio mixes, in which we are going through this song that was tracked and mixed in my home studio.
These kings and queens, they all fall, they all fall. Headless back Destiny's unaware just what will be done. Looking for treason and overtake the throne and sink to the bottom on our own.
We have been through a ton of this mix, but today's video is going to be all about how we should be treating our background or our backup vocals. So we'll get into that. But first, if you like this video or it helps you out or any of my content has helped you out, don't forget to like and subscribe and hit that notification bell so that I can continue to grow this channel and reach more engineers just like you that need help. All right, let's get into this. First of all, for a lot of this to make sense, you will have needed to watch day 23 and 24 in this series. So make sure you go back and check those out, just so you know about the EQ moves and the compression moves that were made on all the main vocal tracks. Let's open up the main chorus vocal here, and then let's open up this backups track. So with most of my chorus vocals, I'll usually have the singer sing the same thing 3 times. And 2 of those takes will actually be backups, and one of them will be the main track. So these backup tracks down here, or this backup track, is actually 2 versions of the singer singing the same exact thing. They're just panned hard right and hard left. So we can take a listen to that.
These kings and queens, they all fall, they all fall.
There we go. Like I said, that's just 2 versions of the singer singing the chorus line. Again, just panned hard right and hard left. And then just bounce to one single track so that I just have one channel strip to work with instead of 2. And this just makes the singer sound wider. So this is just feathered in along with the main track. So let's hear those together.
These kings and queens, they all fall, they all fall. Headless back into oblivion.
As you heard, these backups aren't very loud in comparison to the main vocal track, and they don't need to be, but it's really your preference. Some people like to mix their backup vocals really high. For me, it's just sort of an added widening effect. Now, if we take a look at the channel strip for the backup tracks, you're going to notice that there's not as many plugins on them as there are on all the main vocal tracks. And it's not to say that these backups aren't important, but there's just not as much need to put that much work in on these background vocals. And you're going to see why in a second. Now let's talk about EQ for backups first. So it's important, at least to me, that we don't EQ these backup or background vocals the same as our main vocal tracks. We want to differentiate them as much as they can to either make them stand out more or sit in the background more. So I either like to go very bright with my background vocals or very dark. And I'll show you which one I did here. For the EQ on these background vocals, I went with the obvious for me, the SSL. But one main difference here that you're going to notice is how high I rolled off to on the low end. So we rolled off to almost 300 hertz. So there's not a lot of low end coming through at all on this track, and it's very thinned out, and you could probably tell that already. My reason for doing this is that we don't need any more low end coming from these background vocals. It's going to eat up space in our mix, and we already have that in our main vocal track. These are supposed to be additive, and they aren't supposed to get in the way of our main vocal track. So a normal roll off for a background or backups track might be somewhere in between 200 and 300 hertz. The highest I would ever go would maybe be 300. But here we went at about 270 there. And that's our first difference and one of my main tips for you. Now for this mix, I chose to make these backup tracks pretty bright. So if you watched the EQ video on day 22, I believe it was, for our high shelf on the main vocal tracks, it was at 12K all the way up here, but we actually boosted everything above 8K, and this is going to make these backups sound brighter than our main vocal track. And while these are very low in the mix, this big 8K shelf boost is still going to add a lot of air to our vocal sound and almost just get the high end of this backup track to cut through the mix a little, which is what we want.
These kings and queens, they all fall, they all fall. Headless back into oblivion.
Now, in terms of the rest of the EQ moves, it's very simple. So again, I hope you watched day 22, I believe it was. Basically what I did here is wherever I boosted on the main vocal, I cut a little on this track. And again, this is to differentiate the backups from the main vocal track. So at 2.5, we boost. At 1.5, we boost on the main vocal. Here we just cut by about 3 dB in each of those spots so that these sound at least a bit different than the main vocal track. This is basically about making space for our main vocal tracks in the frequency spectrum. Our vocal tracks are the most important tracks in our song, especially all the lead singing parts. So we really don't want anything to get in the way or touch those. And we can achieve that by doing some of these EQ moves. Now for compression, it's actually pretty simple as well. If you watched day 23 and saw how I use compression on the main vocal tracks, this should be very simple for you. What I do basically is speed up the attack on the compressors and slow down the release. And on that day 23 video, we talked a lot about how the super fast release adds energy to our vocals. Well, for my backups, I don't really want that. So for the main track, our settings were medium attack, fastest release. For my backups, I will usually just speed up that attack a tiny bit, slow down the release a little bit, again, to push these vocals further back into the mix. I still don't hold back on compression for my backups. If we play this, you're going to see that these are very compressed.
These kings and queens, they all fall, they all fall.
Yeah, I want a ton of control on these backups, so I still compress very aggressively, and we still have our limiter at the very end like we showed in the other video. My one last tip for backup vocals is to not add a lot of effects to them. If we listen to these tracks, they're pretty dry.
These kings and queens.
There's really just a minimal amount of reverb on them. And I found in the past, if we add a ton of effects like reverb and delay to these backups, that's just going to muddy up our song. I mean, throwing a ton of effects on tracks that usually aren't very high in our mix just doesn't make sense. Now we use the same techniques on our harmony track.
These kings and queens, they all fall, they all fall.
Now we can listen to all of the chorus vocals together.
These kings and queens, they all fall, they all fall. Headless back into oblivion.
Now tomorrow we're going to talk about the settings on the mix bus and what I usually do when I'm at this point in the mix. And after that, we really only have 2 videos left, and we will be done with this series. That's it for today. If you guys have any questions, feel free to reach out. Happy mixing, guys. Hey guys, if you like this video, be sure to download your free Ultimate Home Studio Mix Guide with your go-to EQ and compression settings for all your tracks. And also be sure to register for my free online mix training that I hold a couple times a week so that you can learn how to make radio quality music from your home without breaking the bank.